Hi, I'm Matt Mahler with MovieWeb. It's a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for discussing this.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, yeah,
Hello.
Yeah. Hi. I've really enjoyed this, especially the direction it takes. It has a lot to say about suffering and how we live with it or don't. There's this interesting sort of subtext text about culture, ancestry, what we inherit, what we repress, and this kind of contrast between Valerie's sort of the self-help industry that she works in versus cultural roots and different ways of healing. I was hoping that Kelly and Shal, could you both sort of discuss that and this through line's importance and relevance in the film? I guess, Kelly, if you want to start.
Well, it's a good question. Yeah, I think generational trauma is one of the big themes of this movie. Um, and sort of how we do or do not deal with that, like you said. I think the thing that's really interesting that Shal and I got to explore together was this sort of idea that this woman was presenting herself a certain way, but then all of these things were really, really starting to go really badly for her internally. And what does that mean? And how does the two identities that she's sort of presenting, one, her personal identity, and then what's actually presented to the public, how does that start to conflict as she starts to unravel? And it was such a crazy, exciting thing to explore together.
definitely. Yeah, it was really great for us to chat about it together because we both have these stories from our family of, these pretty harrowing incidents that occurred either just one generation ago or two generations ago that tends to never be talked about or expressed. It's just something that is just like buried. It's some sort of like inner wound that just very slowly festers and it can come out in the most like inopportune times. Like I feel like I've witnessed it in my family where like people just do some very strange things and don't quite know where it comes from. But the easiest way for me to, I like to sort of contextualize it in a very like physical, metaphorical way was the idea of like a film, like a facade on a film set of like a beautiful apartment wall or, just like a gorgeous looking space, the facade. And in the back of it is just like completely rotten. The beams are about to fall apart. There are bugs in the wood and it's just getting worse and worse and festering. And eventually it's all going to come crashing down. I think that's sort of like the visual of what the story is. Like she's being eaten away by something and eventually it's just going to come out. But yeah, talking with Kelly and figuring out, where we could both approach it from a more personal place, I think was sort of the foundation of that, where it went.
Yeah, I love that. And Miles, you bring a lot of levity to me just in subtle gestures and the way you phrase things in the first half of the film. Um, what were the conversations like with Shal or your own process with like how much humor to introduce, but also what their relationship is like because he's kind of totally invested both professionally and personally with Valerie.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I think it's always really important. Uh, it's always very important to have a certain amount of humor, especially I think in tragedies. I think that it's really important for the story to have a place to fall from, right? And I think that humor is a really easy way to endear you to a character so that when they have fall from grace or a conflict or a tragedy, it hurts that much more. And I think that yeah, we knew that we weren't making a comedy, but I think Shao had to maybe rein me in a few times if I was being a little too silly with it. I like to be silly, but we I think ended up in a really nice place where Robbie I think gives you a sense of where their relationship might have been before we caught up with them, where it might have been a little bit more a little lighter in the past, or there's some kind of context and backstory there where you can understand that they've at a certain time had more time smiling together until we've caught our characters in a moment of darkness. And yeah, I think it was very important for me to know that that's a way of helping us see how sad it is that Kelly's character is going through what she's going through, because at one point we might have joked together more, and 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 then it's quite sad to see that smile leave the face. So
It's
um
a great way to put it. It does give you all this sort of lived-in vibe to it. Um, And I imagine you're very good at comedy. You're doing something with Rachel Sennott, so that'll be or Sennett. That'll be great. And
yeah.
Kelly, you this is sort of a big dive into horror. I'm not sure how much you've played around with it. I saw, well, I haven't seen it, but the Cassette Snuff film, I think, was one of your credits from a long time ago. And then you have this and something called Rock Springs, which also incorporates these creatives who are Asian American or British Asian, things like that. How does its take on horror and culture sort of compare to this film?
Oh, whoa, good question. Very different. I think that, I don't think I can say too much about that film, but I will say the theme of sort of generational trauma is also there, in a way that's really exciting. And yeah, you're mentioning, I think you were insinuating that I got to work with Benedict Wong and Jimmy O Yang, and they're just like the best. So I'm just gonna say that. But yeah, I'm loving the horror genre, and I hope to do more.
Well, we hope to see it because this was really, really good. Thank you all for discussing it. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks. Great questions.